Lesley Haddon was used to pressure, courtrooms, deadlines, demanding clients. But nothing terrified her more than Christmas at home. Because every year, without fail, someone in her family would ask the same question. So, when are you finally bringing someone home? And this year, she was going home alone. Again. Or at least, that's what she thought. Because fate had already arranged for her path to collide with a man she'd never met before. A man who would whisper a single sentence that changed everything. Pretend you're with me. Welcome back, my wonderful family and friends. If you're tuned in and ready to dive into today's story, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and drop a comment letting me know where you're watching from. Tomorrow, I'll be bringing you another exciting story you definitely don't want to miss. So, let's get started. Snow drifted lazily over downtown Chicago, landing on coats, scarves, and glowing streetlights that had been wrapped in green and gold ribbon for the holidays. The city looked magical, storybook magical, but Lesley Haddon felt anything but enchanted. Her heels clicked briskly across the icy sidewalk as she exited the towering glass building of Haddon and Mark's law firm, clutching her worn leather briefcase to her chest. Most people were heading home with cheerful smiles, ready for holiday dinners and warm evenings. Lesley, she was heading toward a full-blown panic attack. Her phone buzzed again. A group family chat filled with Christmas wreath emojis and pictures of her cousins hugging their partners in matching pajamas. Her mother's latest message flashed at the top. Mom, honey, everyone is bringing their boyfriends and girlfriends this year. We can't wait to finally meet yours. Red Heart Christmas Tree. Lesley stopped walking so abruptly that a woman behind her nearly bumped into her. Boyfriend. Her boyfriend. The one who did not exist. The one her mother was absolutely convinced she had. The one that Lesley had allowed her family to believe existed because she was tired, so very tired, of being talked to like she was behind in life. She leaned against a lamppost, closing her eyes as the December wind hit her cheeks. It was always the same. At every holiday dinner, her relatives asked the same questions. When will it be your turn? Aren't you lonely? Your career is wonderful, sweetie. But a woman needs more than success. She could argue in court for hours without breaking a sweat. But 5 minutes around her relatives? Disaster. Emotional meltdown. Judgment from all sides. She whispered to herself, I can't do another Christmas alone. Her breath fogged in the air. She wasn't even ashamed of being single. She just hated the crushing pressure surrounding it. The way people acted as if a relationship determined her worth. To calm herself, she ducked into Mocha Cabin, a cozy cafe glowing with warm lights and cinnamon scents. Holiday music played softly. Couples laughed at small tables, sharing gingerbread cookies. She tried to pretend it didn't bother her. She stood in line, rubbing her temples. Her head throbbed. Focus, Lesley. You just need coffee. Then you'll figure out a solution. Her thoughts raced at 100 miles per hour. I could tell them he's sick. No, that sounds suspicious. I could say he's traveling for work. Too cliché. I could hire someone and oh, that's insane. Then the worst thought of all crept in. Maybe I should just skip Christmas altogether. The line moved. She took a deep breath. But before she could step forward, someone bumped into her gently from behind. Oh, I'm sorry, a low voice said. Lesley turned. The man standing there was striking, not flashy, not covered in expensive logos, just striking in a quiet, refined way. Tall, dark hair slightly tousled from the snow, a charcoal sweater, black coat, and a look in his eyes that was sharp but tired, like he carried a weight he didn't talk about. It's okay, she said politely. He nodded once. Something about him felt different, like he was used to observing a room rather than being part of it. The line moved again. Lesley reached for her bag and froze. Her wallet wasn't there. She checked every pocket, then checked again. No card, no cash, nothing. Oh no, she whispered, mortified. No, 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 this cannot be happening. The barista called. Next. Lesley stepped up awkwardly. Hi, I actually lost my. I've got it, the man behind her said calmly. She turned, stunned. He held out his card with an easy, steady confidence. "Oh no, really, I can't let you." "It's fine," he said. "Just coffee. And maybe a bit of holiday luck." His voice was deep and smooth, like he was used to commanding rooms without meaning to. Lesley hesitated, then exhaled. "Thank you. Really." He just gave a polite nod, like helping strangers was routine for him. They stepped aside while waiting for their drinks. Lesley rubbed her forehead, still flustered. "That was embarrassing," she muttered. "Not at all," he replied. "Happens to everyone." She scoffed lightly. "Not usually to attorneys who should have their life together." He gave a small smile. "Hard day," she sighed. "Hard month." He didn't press. For some reason that made her want to talk. "It's Christmas," she said, "and my family is expecting me to show up with a boyfriend that I don't have." He raised a brow. "Ah, holiday expectations. Brutal." She laughed unexpectedly. He smiled at the sound. "And you?" she asked. "You seem stressed." "Family," he said simply. "Complicated relationships. Complicated expectations. Complicated everything." "Same," Lesley murmured. For a moment, they stood in comfortable silence. The barista called out, "Hot chocolate for Lesley." She reached for it, only to find the man holding it out to her first. "You okay?" he asked gently. Lesley swallowed. "I will be. I just wish I didn't have to face Christmas alone this year." He studied her carefully, not judgmental, just quietly thoughtful. Then, in a voice so low she almost thought she imagined it, he leaned slightly closer. "What if you didn't have to?" Lesley blinked. "What?" His expression softened. "What if you weren't alone for Christmas?" he repeated. "What if you had someone to go with you?" Her heart skipped. "Are you offering?" He shrugged, not arrogant, just direct. "If you want someone to pretend to be your boyfriend for a few days, I can do that." She nearly choked on her hot chocolate. You would do that? For a stranger? Sometimes strangers understand us more than family does." She stared at him, stunned. Before she could reply, a voice called sharply from the café entrance. "Mr. Cole, the car is ready." "Mr. Cole?" She turned slowly. The man looked apologetic. "Sorry," he said. "I forgot to introduce myself properly." He extended his hand. "I'm Alexander Cole." Lesley froze. Alexander Cole. The Alexander Cole. The billionaire CEO, so private that people barely knew what he looked like outside corporate events. Her mouth went dry. He gave her a gentle smile. "So, what do you say, Lesley? Need a Christmas boyfriend?" Her world spun. A billionaire, offering to pretend to date her. For Christmas. This was either fate or madness. Lesley stared at his outstretched hand, her heart pounding so loudly she could barely hear the holiday music around her. Should she take his hand and accept the offer that could save her Christmas? Or walk away from the most unexpected twist of her life? If you were Lesley, would you accept Alexander's offer? Comment Bilo? Snowflakes swirled outside mocha cabins' glowing windows as Lesley stood frozen in place. Alexander Cole, private billionaire, public mystery, was standing right in front of her, hand extended, offering himself as her Christmas boyfriend like it was the simplest thing in the world. Except it wasn't simple. Nothing about this moment felt simple. Lesley's pulse drummed in her ears. She had spent the last week catastrophizing about her family's judgment, imagining every possible way Christmas could go wrong. But even in her wildest, most desperate imagined solutions, she had never once pictured this. A billionaire, a stranger, offering a solution that felt impossible, unbelievable, and strangely comforting. She stared at his hand. Alexander didn't move, didn't rush her, didn't pressure her. He simply held her gaze with a calm patience that made her feel, for the first time in weeks, like she was allowed to breathe. Finally, she whispered, "Why would you do this?" Alexander's expression softened. "Because I've needed rescuing before, and someone once did it for me." His answer punched through her defenses in a way nothing else could have. "And because," he continued more quietly, "you look like someone who's been carrying too much alone." Leslie's throat tightened. Nobody ever noticed that about her. Everyone saw the attorney, the achiever, the woman who had everything together. Except she didn't. Not even close. She swallowed. You're serious? Completely. If you want the help. Help. A word she rarely accepted from anyone. But Alexander Cole wasn't some pushy savior. He wasn't acting superior or pitying. He just understood. More than he should. More than any stranger had the right to. That scared her. But so did going home alone again. Before she could speak, the suited driver at the front door cleared his throat impatiently. Sir, your family is waiting at the... Alexander raised a hand, and the man fell silent instantly. Family. So he was running from them too. Lesley found her voice. And what do you get out of pretending to be my boyfriend? Something in his eyes flickered, humor, maybe, or maybe exhaustion. An excuse, he said. To avoid the most painfully repetitive Christmas dinner of my life. She blinked. You hate Christmas? I don't hate the holiday. I hate the expectations. Her lips parted. Your family pressures you too? Endlessly. That made her laugh in disbelief. You're a billionaire. What could they possibly pressure you about? He shrugged with a small, rueful smile. When you have everything, people expect even more. For the first time, she didn't see the billionaire. She saw the man behind the headlines. A man who carried invisible weight of his own. Her heart softened, but she still hesitated. This could go horribly wrong, she whispered. He nodded. It could. I don't even know you. Then ask me anything. Lesley bit the inside of her cheek. Her lawyer instincts kicked in. Okay. First question. Are you dangerous? His eyebrows lifted, amused. Only to quarterly profits. She snorted. He leaned slightly closer. I'm not dangerous to you, Lesley. I promise. Her cheeks warmed. Second question, she said. Why me? Alexander took a moment before answering. It wasn't a flirty pause. Not dramatic. Just honest. Because you didn't recognize me, he said quietly. She blinked. You looked me in the eye and actually saw me, he continued. Not headlines. Not money. Not power. Just a man ordering hot chocolate. Leslie's heart squeezed unexpectedly. He exhaled softly. That doesn't happen often. A strange tenderness washed over her. She glanced at his still outstretched hand again. What would happen if she said yes? A fake relationship with a billionaire she met in a coffee shop. Her family believing she'd been dating someone secretly. Christmas suddenly turning from a nightmare to a miracle. It wasn't logical. But nothing about the past hour had been logical. Still, her nerves twisted. What if we mess it up? She whispered. Alexander gave a small, reassuring smile. Then we laugh, fix it, and blame holiday stress. People expect chaos at Christmas. She laughed softly despite herself. 5 days, he said gently. That's all. I go with you to your family gathering. I play the role, and then you never have to see me again. Something in her chest tightened at those last words, and she didn't know why. She swallowed hard, bit her lip, took a breath, and finally, placed her hand in his. His grip was warm, steady, grounding. Alexander smiled. Then I guess, he said softly, we're in this together. A strange warmth rushed through Lesley. Hope mixed with terror, mixed with something she couldn't name yet. He gently released her hand and checked his watch. My plane leaves in 2 hours, he said. If we're going to pull this off, we'll need to align on the details. Stories, timelines, how we met. He paused. Unless you want to back out. Lesley shook her head before thinking. No, I want to do this. He grinned lightly. Good. Because I've already delayed a meeting for you. Seriously. He shrugged. It was a boring one. She rolled her eyes, smiling despite her anxiety. Then his driver approached again. Sir, we need to. Alexander turned to Lesley. Come with me. We'll talk on the way. Lesley blinked. On the way, where? He smiled mischievously. To the airport. Her stomach flipped. Airport? Why? He lifted a brow. We're going to your family's house, right? She hesitated. Yes, but where is it? Seattle. Alexander nodded. Perfect. My jet can leave early. Her mind blanked. My what can leave early? He paused, then corrected himself gently. Our jet. Lesley almost dropped her hot chocolate. You want me to fly with you? Tonight. He nodded calmly. Unless you prefer commercial flights? And a 7-hour layover in Denver. She shook her head quickly. No, no, no. Private jet is fine. Good. Let's go then. He reached for her bag instinctively, then stopped himself. May I? He asked quietly. She nodded. And just like that, they stepped out into the softly falling snow, walking side by side toward a dark, sleek car waiting at the curb. Lesley glanced at Alexander from the corner of her eye. A billionaire was holding her bag, opening the car door for her, choosing her company over his own meticulously planned life. Her life had just taken a turn she did not see coming. She whispered under her breath, "What am I getting myself into?" Alexander heard her. He smiled faintly. Hopefully, a Christmas you won't forget. Lesley's heart thudded. She had no idea then, no idea how deeply this pretend arrangement would end up changing both of their lives. As the car pulled away from the café, Lesley's phone buzzed with a new message from her mother. Sweetheart, I'm making extra cookies for your boyfriend. We're so excited to meet him. Lesley stared at the text, her cheeks flushing, her pulse racing. She wasn't sure what terrified her more, facing her family on Christmas, or the fact that pretending to date Alexander Cole was already beginning to feel dangerously real. If you were Lesley, would you already be catching feelings? Comment Bilo? Snow dusted the sleek black car as it pulled away from Mocha Cabin, gliding through the glowing streets of downtown Chicago. Holiday lights blurred across the windows, painting soft streaks of gold and red over Lesley's face as she sat in the back seat beside Alexander Cole, her brand new pretend Christmas boyfriend. She still couldn't believe she'd agreed. She still couldn't believe who she'd agreed to. Her fingers tightened around her hot chocolate cup, now lukewarm. Across from her, Alexander sat relaxed, watching the city pass by as though this were the most natural thing in the world. His presence filled the car, not loudly, not boastfully, but with a quiet confidence that made the air feel different somehow. Safe, but also unpredictable. Lesley didn't know if she was supposed to breathe normally or stop breathing altogether. The driver's voice came through a small intercom near the dashboard. 20 minutes to the airport, Mr. Cole. Alexander nodded once, then glanced at Lesley. You okay? He asked gently. Lesley exhaled a shaky laugh. Okay is a stretch. He smiled softly. Understandable. She stared out the window, watching a family tug a Christmas tree through the snow, two kids stumbling behind it with giggles that puffed like tiny clouds. Why me? She asked suddenly. Alexander blinked. You could have chosen anyone to help you escape your family dinner. Someone simple. Someone who wouldn't ask questions. Someone who didn't talk too much or panic too much. I'm complicated. She swallowed. Why did you offer this to me? He studied her. Not in a way that made her self-conscious, just deeply, quietly thoughtful. You were honest with me, he said finally. Lesley frowned. I barely told you anything. That's not true, he countered softly. You told me how stressed you are, how much pressure you're under. You didn't pretend to be fine. She opened her mouth, then closed it. You'd be surprised, he continued. How many people lie to me, even in small talk? Everyone wants something. Everyone performs a version of themselves when they talk to me. His voice softened. But you didn't. Lesley felt her chest tighten. Not with discomfort, but with something warm she didn't want to name. Before she could reply, Alexander suddenly reached into his coat and pulled out a notebook. A small, black, leather-bound notebook. He flipped it open. Okay, he said. If we're doing this, we need a story. A story of how we met. Lesley blinked. The truth isn't enough? The truth, he said dryly. is that I bumped into you in a coffee shop and offered myself as your rented holiday boyfriend. She coughed. Okay, fair. He gave a gentle, amused smile. So we'll need something believable, trustworthy, something that won't make your family suspicious. Oh no, Lesley groaned. You don't understand. My mother investigates everything. She once did a background check on my college roommate because she thought the girl looked mysterious. Alexander's eyes sparkled. Then we'll prepare. He clicked a pen. Let's start with basics. How long have we been together? Lesley resisted the urge to sink into the seat. I never thought I'd be inventing a fake relationship with a billionaire tonight. Neither did I, Alexander murmured, smirking slightly. She ignored the way her stomach fluttered. Okay, she said. 1 month. He shook his head. Too short. They'll panic. 3 months. Better. Your mom will still panic, but slightly less. She laughed nervously. Okay. 3 months. He scribbled it down. And how did we meet? Lesley rubbed her temples. In a bookstore? That sounds cute. Good. And believable. He jotted it down. And what book did you pick up that made me talk to you first? Lesley blinked. You want details like that? Yes. Christmas dinners are interrogation marathons. The small details save you. She let out a breath, already overwhelmed. All right. Little Women? Alexander's eyes warmed. Perfect. She swallowed. Really? Yes. Fits you. What does that mean? He shrugged lightly. You strike me as someone who loves stories about strength, and loyalty, and women making their own path. Lesley stared at him. That was alarmingly accurate. How did you know that? She whispered. Alexander simply smiled. You're easy to read. Nobody ever says that about me. Then they're not paying attention. Her heart stumbled. She looked away quickly, trying to steady her breath. The car pulled into a secured private entrance beneath the airport. Security guards greeted them immediately, scanning badges as the car passed through. Lesley's jaw dropped slightly at the huge hangar ahead. A sleek private jet waited inside, glistening white under bright lights like something out of a movie. Wow, she breathed. Alexander watched her with the faintest smile. You've never flown private before? She shook her head. I've never even stood near a private jet before. Good, he said quietly. First times should be memorable. Something about the way he said it made heat bloom across her cheeks. The car parked beside the jet. The driver opened the door. Alexander stepped out first, then offered his hand to help her. Lesley hesitated, then took it. His hand was warm again, steady again. Everything in her life had been spinning out of control for weeks. But somehow, holding his hand made the world feel less tilted. They climbed the stairs into the jet, and her eyes widened all over again. Cream leather seats, soft lighting, a small fireplace simulation glowing on the screen, a table set with holly decorations. It felt less like a jet and more like a Christmas-themed luxury living room. This is unreal, she whispered. Alexander smiled slightly. Welcome aboard. She sat carefully, afraid she might break something by breathing too hard. Alexander set the notebook on the table and sat across from her. Okay, he said. Next part. Why haven't you told your family about me? Lesley groaned. Because they would have been terrifying. Understandable. And because I didn't want to disappoint them again. Alexander paused mid-note. His expression softened. You aren't a disappointment, Lesley. She froze. He said it with such blunt sincerity. It nearly knocked the air from her lungs. You don't even know me, she whispered. I know, he said gently. What it looks like when someone is carrying the weight of being the responsible one. The one everyone relies on. The one who puts out fires. The one who pretends she's okay because she doesn't want anyone worrying. Her throat tightened painfully. How could you possibly know that? She asked. Alexander leaned back slowly. Because I've lived it. Lesley didn't expect the ache in his voice, the truth in it. Suddenly, she didn't see the billionaire CEO at all. She saw a man who had been lonely in a crowded room his whole life. She swallowed. Alexander. He looked down at his notebook, clearing his throat. Next question, he said lightly, shifting the mood. What's your favorite holiday tradition? Lesley hesitated. Making cinnamon cookies with my sister when we were kids. He smiled. Good. We'll use that. And you? She asked. Alexander paused. Reading, he said finally. Usually alone. Alone. Of course. Lesley's chest tightened again. Unexpectedly, painfully. For someone so wealthy, he seemed painfully starved of simple warmth. The jet engines began to hum beneath them. Alexander looked at her, expression steady, voice quiet. Ready. Lesley inhaled slowly. She wasn't ready. Not for the lies. Not for facing her family. Not for sitting on a jet beside a man who looked at her like he saw more than she wanted anyone to see. But she also wasn't ready to run away. She nodded once. Ready. Alexander smiled. And as the jet lifted into the dark, snowy sky, Lesley couldn't shake the feeling that this holiday lie, this insane, ridiculous plan, was about to change everything. As the jet soared into the clouds, Lesley's phone buzzed with a picture from her mother. A huge Christmas sign that read, Welcome home, Lesley. Can't wait to meet the man who stole your heart. Lesley's stomach flipped. Alexander leaned forward, smirking. Looks like they're excited. She swallowed hard. This fake relationship was becoming very real very fast. Would you panic if you were on that jet? Or would you start falling for Alexander already? Comment bilot? The cabin-like interior of the private jet smelled faintly of pine and vanilla, the soft hum of the engines filling the comfortable silence. Lesley sipped her now lukewarm hot chocolate, trying to calm the rapid beat of her heart. Across from her, Alexander seemed almost casual, yet she could sense the quiet tension beneath his poised demeanor, the carefulness in every gesture, every look he gave her. Are you sure about this? She asked, voice barely above a whisper. I mean, pretending to be a couple? It's one thing to escape dinner with my family. It's another to sit beside me on a jet? He finished for her, a faint smirk tugging at his lips. Yes, I know, it's not normal. But, Lesley, he paused, letting the weight of the moment settle. Normal is overrated, isn't it? She blinked at him. A faint warmth spread across her cheeks. He was right. In her life, normal had been code for monotonous stress and endless judgment. Maybe this ridiculous, luxurious, insane plan was exactly what she needed. I suppose you're right, she said, trying for a brave tone. Though, I might die of embarrassment when my mother meets you. Alexander laughed softly, the sound low and magnetic. That's the fun part. Embarrassment is temporary. Memories last. She rolled her eyes but didn't hide her smile. I'm trusting you on this. I really am. But, one misstep and my family could sniff out the truth immediately. He leaned forward slightly, elbows resting on his knees, gaze intent. Then we plan, strategize. We create a story so seamless it's believable but also fun. Something that feels real without overdoing it. Her eyebrows lifted. Real? You're suggesting a fake relationship feels real. Exactly, he said simply. A shared experience. Partnership. We navigate it together. That's the secret. Act like a couple, talk like a couple, but enjoy the journey. That's the real trick. Lesley stared at him. For a moment, she forgot the stress, the panic, the anxiety that had brought her to this crazy arrangement. She just watched him. The calm in the storm, the quiet confidence, the subtle charm that made every word feel measured and deliberate. Okay, she said finally, exhaling. I'm in. For better or worse, I'll play along. Alexander's smile deepened. Good. I like commitment. The jet began to tilt slightly as they approached cruising altitude, the soft vibration beneath her seat reminding Lesley that she wasn't imagining herself in a dream. So, she said, forcing herself to sound casual, what's your plan for the Christmas dinner itself? Alexander tapped his fingers against the notebook lying open on the small table between them. We create a timeline. Entry, greetings, introductions, compliments, small talk, anecdotes, desserts, exit. Every moment choreographed for maximum believability and minimal suspicion. Lesley laughed nervously. "You've done this before, haven't you?" He shrugged. "I've observed enough social events to understand. Timing, tone, and attention to detail are everything, especially with families. And you're going to train me?" "I already am," he said simply, leaning back in his seat. "You're doing great so far." She tilted her head, studying him. "You're unreal. A billionaire flying a jet, offering to be my fake boyfriend. And you're still nice. Not arrogant. Not pushy. Just—" She trailed off, unsure how to describe the peculiar effect he had on her. He held her gaze steadily, unblinking. "I like to think of it as realistic. Authentic. Maybe it's rare, but I promise I'm not perfect." The words landed softly, but they felt heavier than any rich gift or dazzling smile ever could. For a moment, Lesley imagined her life not as a courtroom case or a series of holiday pressures, but simply as her, sitting here with him, sharing warmth and quiet. "Alexander," she whispered. "Why me?" He blinked, slightly surprised by the directness. "Why you?" he echoed. "Because—" He paused, searching for words. "You're real. You don't hide behind perfection. You don't pretend. You just are. And that matters." Her chest tightened. She wanted to respond but found herself speechless. The hum of the engines, the flicker of cabin lights, the faint scent of pine. All of it seemed to cocoon them in a bubble outside the rest of the world. Outside the pressure. Outside the judgment. Finally, Alexander spoke again, voice softer now. "And that's why I offered. Because you deserve someone to have your back. Even if it's just for a few days." Lesley swallowed, blinking rapidly to keep from crying. Not because she was sad, but because someone finally seemed to understand the weight she carried. Someone outside her family, outside her work, outside her expectations. The remainder of the flight passed in a strangely comforting silence, punctuated by occasional laughter as they rehearsed answers, improvised backstories, and created believable anecdotes. Lesley began to see him not as a billionaire stranger but as a partner in this absurd, magical plan. Hours later, the jet descended through the snow-swirled skies of her hometown. The city lights glimmered below, holiday displays glowing like fireflies. Lesley gripped the armrest tightly, anticipation, fear, and something unnameable swirling inside her. Alexander placed a reassuring hand lightly over hers. "Ready?" he asked. She nodded, taking a shaky breath. "As ready as I'll ever be." He squeezed gently. "Good. Whatever happens, we face it together." And as the jet touched down and taxied toward the private terminal, Lesley realized that this Christmas, the story she was about to tell, full of half-truths and careful choreography, might be the beginning of a story she hadn't expected. A story not just about fake relationships, but about hearts finding each other in the most unexpected places. As the jet doors opened and a snow-laden walkway awaited, Lesley's phone buzzed. She glanced down. A group text from her family lit the screen. "Can't wait to see you and your boyfriend tonight." Her stomach lurched. She looked at Alexander, who gave her a reassuring, mischievous smile. She swallowed hard. How far could this pretend relationship go before feelings became real? If you were Lesley, would you be able to keep your heart out of this fake relationship? Comment below. And make sure to subscribe to Philia Heart for Act 5. The private jet's door closed behind them, leaving the soft hiss of snow and wind outside. Lesley's stomach fluttered as Alexander guided her through the heated terminal, each step echoing faintly in the quiet space. The city smelled of snow, exhaust, and the faintly sweet scent of roasting chestnuts from a nearby street vendor. Christmas lights twinkled along the terminal windows, reflecting off polished marble floors and the shiny black exterior of luxury vehicles. Lesley clutched her purse like a lifeline. Her mind raced. This is it. One evening. One dinner. Don't mess up. Pretend. Breathe. Survive. Alexander's hand brushed hers lightly, not touching, but enough to ground her. She looked up and found him studying the crowd calmly, almost as though he had prepared for this exact moment for years. Not because he had been a billionaire CEO, but because he seemed to understand the delicate art of managing expectations and appearances. "You look nervous," he said softly. Lesley swallowed hard. "Just a little. Okay, maybe more than a little. My family, they don't do subtle. They do judgment and questions. And I didn't exactly tell them you exist." He smiled, quiet and warm. "Not yet. That's why we have a plan." She groaned. "Plan? I can barely remember my own phone number under pressure." "You'll do fine," he said, voice steady. "Just remember, confidence isn't about being perfect. It's about acting like you belong. We already belong here together. You and me. Simple." She tried to calm her racing heart. Together. She repeated the word silently, letting it roll in her mind like a mantra. When they arrived at her parents' house, it looked exactly as she remembered: warm lights strung around the porch, wreaths on every door, the smell of baking wafting into the crisp night air. Her mother's voice carried across the walkway even before the door opened. "Lesley, darling," her mother cried, arms outstretched. "And you must be Alexander." Lesley froze for a brief moment, then stepped forward, Alexander following. He gave a polite nod, the slightest smile curving his lips. His presence alone commanded respect, and yet it was disarmingly approachable. Lesley's father appeared behind her mother, tall and imposing, but with a welcoming warmth in his eyes. "So this is the boyfriend, huh?" he said, voice teasing. Alexander extended a hand. "It's a pleasure to meet you, sir. I've heard wonderful things." Her father's eyebrow lifted. "Heard things? Oh, about what exactly?" Lesley panicked internally. She stumbled through a vague explanation about work connections and shared interests, while Alexander nodded politely, making small talk effortlessly. Every question was deflected with charm, ease, and subtle humor. By the time they sat down for dinner, Lesley realized something startling. Alexander was making her look good. Not just good, confident, radiant, believable. And somehow, his attention, his quiet understanding, made her feel less like she was performing and more like she was herself. Her mother, ever perceptive, leaned forward. "So, Alexander, how did you two meet?" Lesley panicked for a split second, then remembered the notebook scenario from the jet. She recounted their bookstore meeting, fumbling slightly over the details, but Alexander jumped in with seamless additions. A shared love of certain novels, the casual way he claimed to have spilled coffee near her accidentally, the laughter they shared that day. It was flawless. Her mother's eyes twinkled. "Oh, that's just adorable," she cooed. "You two are perfect together." Lesley blinked, trying not to choke on her soup. Alexander simply smiled at her across the table, a silent, reassuring message that they were doing this together. As the evening wore on, the family questions grew more personal, probing gently but persistently. Lesley was about to crumble when Alexander leaned closer and whispered softly, just for her, "Answer honestly, but keep it charming." She followed his cue. The difference was immediate. She laughed. She smiled. She held his hand under the table for subtle support. And suddenly, she wasn't drowning in anxiety anymore. She was sharing this moment, feeling seen, supported, and oddly exhilarated. After dessert, her younger cousins asked for stories about Alexander, curiosity shining in their eyes. "Is he funny? Scary? Do you fight?" Alexander laughed. A warm, genuine sound that made her heart flutter, and told them a light, funny story about a prank at a corporate retreat. The children giggled, and Lesley realized she was laughing too, truly laughing. It had been months since she'd felt this at ease, this happy. Her mother leaned close, whispering conspiratorially, "He's perfect for you, Lesley." She flushed, not knowing whether to feel embarrassed or grateful. Alexander's eyes met hers across the table, and in that moment, it wasn't about pretense. Not about fake boyfriends or holiday lies. It was just them, existing in the warmth of the room, the snow outside forgotten. As the evening drew to a close, Alexander walked her to the car. The streetlights reflected softly on the freshly fallen snow. "You were amazing," he said quietly, voice low enough for only her to hear. She shook her head. "We were amazing. I couldn't have done it without you." He smiled softly, brushing a stray strand of hair from her face. "That's the thing about partnerships. You don't do it alone." Her heart fluttered, inexplicably and insistently. Something in the warmth of his voice, the steadiness of his presence, was breaking through the armor she'd built around herself for years. As the car door closed, she felt a buzz in her phone. Another family group text, this time from her cousin. "Lesley, Alexander is literally perfect. When can we all see more of him?" Lesley groaned, burying her face in her hands. Alexander leaned closer, whispering with a smirk, "Well, we might need to negotiate the sequel." And for the first time that evening, Lesley realized, this Christmas, what started as a fake relationship might be starting to feel dangerously real. Back in the car, heading toward the city for a walk through the holiday festival, Alexander glanced at her with a soft, teasing smile. "You know," he said quietly, "at some point, pretending might not be enough." Lesley's heart skipped a beat. She looked out the window, snowflakes drifting past, trying to hide the rapid pulse she couldn't deny. Had the pretend Christmas boyfriend become something more? If you were Lesley, would you start feeling real emotions for a fake boyfriend? Comment Bilo? The streets of downtown Chicago glittered like a scene from a snow globe. Twinkling lights wrapped around lamp posts, storefronts were decorated with wreaths and shimmering garlands, and the scent of roasted chestnuts and hot cocoa lingered in the crisp night air. Couples strolled hand in hand, children laughed as they built tiny snowmen, and carolers sang softly in the distance. Lesley pulled her coat tighter around her as Alexander guided her through the crowd. Somehow, walking beside a billionaire CEO in the middle of a festive city felt both surreal and perfectly normal. Her fingers occasionally brushed against his, and each time, a strange warmth spread up her arm. "So," Alexander said casually, glancing down at her, "you've survived the family gauntlet. How does it feel?" Lesley let out a shaky laugh. "Exhausted, but relieved. I didn't think I'd make it through without crying in front of my mother." He smirked. "You didn't. You smiled through it like a pro. Honestly, I'm impressed." "I didn't smile for you," she said, though her tone was lighter than before. "I smiled so I wouldn't get interrogated about my non-existent boyfriend." He gave a low chuckle. "I think you'd have been fine either way." They reached a small plaza where a holiday festival had been set up. Wooden stalls sold handmade ornaments, mugs of steaming cocoa, and freshly baked cookies. The air was alive with laughter, the soft hum of a distant carousel, and the gentle chatter of happy strangers. Alexander handed her a warm cup of cocoa. "Here. It's not coffee, but it's festive and less likely to ruin your teeth." Lesley took it with a shy smile. "Thanks." He watched her for a moment, his eyes softening. "You know, Lesley, you've spent so much time worrying about everyone else, about their expectations, that I don't think you've allowed yourself to just enjoy something in years." She blinked at him. "How could you possibly know that?" "Because I see it," he said simply. "You carry so much weight, professional, personal, family expectations. And yet, here you are, still trying, still moving forward, still trying to be kind, even when it's hard." Lesley's chest tightened. She wanted to tell him it wasn't true, that she was just surviving, that she was a mess inside, but she didn't. Instead, she sipped her cocoa, letting the warmth spread through her, and realized for the first time that someone truly noticed. Alexander reached out, lightly brushing a snowflake off her coat. "You deserve to enjoy tonight," he said softly. "Not because of who you are pretending to be, but because of who you really are." Her heart stuttered. She wanted to look away, but she couldn't. There was something in his gaze, a quiet honesty, that made it impossible to deny the pull between them. They wandered through the festival, laughing at little holiday games, stopping at stalls to pick out ornaments for imaginary trees, and occasionally holding hands when the cold made it necessary. Lesley felt herself relaxing in a way she hadn't in months. The weight of her family expectations, the pressure of being perfect, the fear of being judged. It all seemed to fade when she was with him. At a small ice skating rink, Alexander gestured toward the skates. Ever been ice skating here? Lesley shook her head. I tried once. I fell immediately. Perfect, he said with a grin. Then it's my duty to teach you. Safety guaranteed. She laughed nervously, but allowed him to help her strap on the skates. Once on the ice, he steadied her as she wobbled. You're doing fine, he said, close enough that she could feel his warmth. Really? Look at you. She stumbled slightly and caught herself, eyes meeting his. For a moment, the bustling festival faded. It was just her and him on the ice, the city lights sparkling around them. You're really patient, she whispered. Not patient, he corrected gently. Careful. With you, I want to be careful. Her heart skipped. She wanted to ask what he meant, but instead, she let herself glide a little, laughing when she wobbled again. He stayed near, guiding her, steadying her, and she realized how comforting it felt to have someone so strong and attentive by her side. After skating, they sat on a nearby bench, sipping cocoa, watching families and couples pass by. Alexander's gaze lingered on her, not in a way that made her nervous, but in a way that made her pulse quicken. Lesley, he said quietly, can I ask you something personal? She hesitated. I suppose. Do you ever let yourself not worry? Lesley blinked. Not really. It's not like I can turn it off. Maybe you should try, he said softly, nudging her hand gently with his. Tonight. Just this once. No pretending. No family expectations. Just you and me enjoying a holiday evening. Her chest tightened with an unfamiliar mix of excitement and fear. Could she really allow herself to let go? To trust this man she barely knew, who had offered her a world she never imagined? She looked at him, and for the first time in a long time, she let herself smile. Not the nervous, forced smile for her family, but a real smile that reached her eyes. I think I'd like that, she whispered. He smiled. A slow, quiet smile that made her stomach flip. Good. Then tonight we forget the world. Just for a while. They sat together, hands brushing, laughter drifting across the snow, as the city carried on around them. For the first time, Lesley felt lighter, freer, and more alive than she had in years. But as the night deepened, and the festival lights flickered against the soft fall of snow, a subtle unease touched her mind. How long can this last? She was pretending, lying, living a fantasy. And Alexander was so impossibly real. Her phone buzzed in her coat pocket, breaking the quiet moment. She glanced at it and froze. It was a message from her mother. We have a special surprise for you at the Christmas Eve dinner. Can't wait for you and Alexander. Her stomach dropped. A special surprise. And she realized they were about to walk straight into the heart of her family's scrutiny. Together. Pretend boyfriend, billionaire CEO, real emotions tangled in a web of lies. She looked up at Alexander, whose expression mirrored concern, though his tone remained calm. Well, he said softly, taking her hand. Looks like the real challenge is just beginning. Her heart raced, snowflakes falling gently around them. She squeezed his hand, and for a moment the cold, the panic, the pressure, all of it, melted away under the warmth of the moment, the thrill of the unexpected, and the undeniable pull growing between them. As the festival lights reflected in her wide eyes, Lesley knew the next evening would decide everything. Could she survive her family's surprise? Could she maintain the ruse and her heart when the line between pretend and reality blurred? Alexander's quiet whisper reached her ears. Ready for your family's ultimate test? Her pulse raced. Was she really ready for anything? If you were Lesley, would you risk your heart for this pretend relationship? Comment Bilo? The night before Christmas. The sky over Chicago glittered with stars faintly visible through drifting snow. Streetlights reflected off the white-covered streets as the city hummed with holiday cheer. Lesley sat in the passenger seat of Alexander's sleek car, clutching her purse, her mind spinning. This is it, she muttered. The ultimate family test. Alexander glanced at her with a small, reassuring smile. You're going to be fine. Just be yourself. I am myself, she protested, though her shaky voice betrayed her. I'm me, but also not me. This is insane. He reached over, lightly brushing a hand over hers. Then let's embrace the insanity together. We're a team tonight, remember? Lesley exhaled, trying to steady her nerves. Her family's expectations were always suffocating. But tonight, she wasn't facing it alone. The car rolled to a stop outside her mother's house. The familiar sight of the Christmas wreath on the front door made her heart race. She could already hear the faint hum of holiday music from inside and the muffled voices of relatives. Alexander stepped out first, holding the door open. After you, he said softly. She hesitated, then stepped out, the snow crunching under her boots. Her mother, dressed in a shimmering red gown, appeared at the door almost immediately. Lesley, Alexander, come in, come in. Her mother's voice was bright with excitement, but her eyes held a hint of scrutiny. Lesley's father, tall and imposing yet warmly smiling, appeared behind her mother, and Lesley felt the familiar pang of anxiety. She reminded herself, it's pretend. You've got Alexander. You can survive this. They were ushered into a living room overflowing with decorations. Golden garlands, ornaments of every shape and color, and a massive Christmas tree twinkling with white lights. Her cousins were scattered about, each pair seemingly more polished and happy than the last. And, this must be Alexander, her mother said with a scrutinizing yet polite smile. Lesley's been talking about you non-stop. Alexander extended a hand smoothly, meeting her mother's gaze with effortless charm. It's a pleasure to meet you, Mrs. Haddon. Lesley has spoken very highly of you. Her mother's eyes narrowed slightly, then softened. Oh, that's wonderful. We're so glad you could join us tonight. Lesley exhaled quietly. Alexander had handled the introduction perfectly. Dinner began, and soon questions started flowing, carefully orchestrated by her mother, but relentless all the same. So, how long have you two been dating? Her mother asked. Lesley glanced at Alexander. He smiled, confident and calm. 3 months, he said smoothly as they had practiced. Her mother's brow lifted slightly. 3 months. And how did you meet? In a bookstore, Lesley said quickly, feeling a blush creep up. We both reached for the same copy of Little Women. Her mother's expression softened, though her eyes remained curious. How charming. And what do you do, Alexander? I run my own company, he replied casually, giving her mother a polite, respectful nod. It keeps me busy, but I always make time for the people who matter. Lesley's heart skipped. That simple, genuine tone, it was perfect. As dinner continued, Alexander engaged with her family, navigating tricky questions about career, hobbies, and the holidays with the kind of grace Lesley could only admire. He laughed politely at her father's dry jokes, complimented her mother's cooking, and even charmed her younger cousins with an impromptu story about a funny misadventure at a corporate Christmas party. Lesley found herself relaxing in ways she hadn't expected. Watching Alexander interact so naturally with her family, she realized something. He wasn't pretending tonight. He was kind, attentive, charming, and genuinely good. At one point, her mother leaned over and whispered, Lesley, I must say, he seems perfect for you. Lesley's stomach twisted. Pretend. It's all pretend. She nodded silently, forcing a smile. After dinner, the family gathered around the tree for presents. Lesley's mother handed Alexander a small, neatly wrapped gift. For you, she said, to welcome you into the family. Alexander opened it carefully, revealing a set of engraved cufflinks. He looked up at her mother, genuine gratitude in his eyes. Thank you. That's incredibly thoughtful. Lesley felt warmth bloom in her chest. He truly was thoughtful. She realized, with a flicker of fear and excitement, that she was beginning to care. Not for the fake boyfriend role he was playing, but for the man beneath it. After presents, the family moved to the living room fireplace, sipping cocoa. Lesley sank into a plush armchair, Alexander beside her. Their hands brushed occasionally, a subtle but constant reminder that he was there, supporting her. As the evening wound down, her mother excused herself to speak to a distant cousin. Lesley turned to Alexander. "You were amazing tonight," she whispered. Alexander smiled, but his eyes were serious. "You made it easier. You let yourself enjoy it. That's what mattered." Lesley's heart fluttered. "It wasn't easy. I've never—" She trailed off, uncertain. How could she explain the whirlwind of emotions she was feeling? He leaned slightly closer. "I know, but look at you. You survived the ultimate test, and you did it beautifully." Her chest warmed, and for a moment, everything else, the stress, the fear, the pretenses, faded. Then her phone buzzed. A notification from her mother. "One last surprise for you. Come to the balcony." Lesley's pulse quickened. She glanced at Alexander, who simply nodded. Together, they stepped out onto the balcony. The winter night was breathtaking. A small fireworks display lit up the snowy sky, casting shimmering colors over the city. Lesley gasped. "It's beautiful," she whispered. Alexander stood beside her, the warmth of his presence close enough to feel. "Not as beautiful as this moment," he said quietly. Her heart raced. She wanted to look away, to remind herself that this was still pretend. But she didn't. She couldn't. As the final burst of fireworks faded, Alexander's hand found hers. He didn't ask permission. He didn't need to. Their fingers intertwined naturally, comfortably. Lesley's breath caught. Could a pretend Christmas romance feel this real? And in that dazzling display of lights, she realized that maybe, just maybe, pretending wasn't enough anymore. Lesley felt the electricity between them as their fingers intertwined. But a sudden realization hit her like a snowstorm. What if her feelings were already real? What if Alexander felt the same? And what if this Christmas pretense couldn't remain a lie for long? Do you think Lesley and Alexander will start to fall for each other for real?
Comment Bilo?
The private jet descended slowly over Chicago, its lights twinkling like a mirror to the city below. Lesley gazed out the window, the snow falling gently on the streets beneath, casting everything in a soft glow. Alexander sat beside her, his hand occasionally brushing hers as they reviewed the final details for the evening. Her family dinner, the pretense of their relationship, the intricate web of stories they'd created. Lesley couldn't stop thinking about the balcony moment from the previous night. Their fingers intertwined. The warmth of his hand. The closeness. Her chest tightened every time she remembered how natural it felt. How easy it had been to forget that this was supposed to be fake. Alexander glanced at her, sensing her distraction. "You're quiet," he said softly. "Thinking too much?" She laughed nervously. "You could say that. You always think too much," he replied, teasing gently. "Relax for once." "I can't relax," she muttered. "It's Christmas Eve, my family's expecting a boyfriend, and I have to act like I'm someone I'm not." He leaned back, studying her profile. "Lesley, you're not someone you're not. You're just trying to survive. And survive beautifully, I might add." She swallowed hard, the compliment hitting deeper than she expected. Her feelings were a tangle of confusion, excitement, and fear. She knew she was starting to care. Deeply. But what would happen when the pretense ended? Would he feel the same way? Or would he simply leave as soon as the charade was over? The jet touched down. Warm lights of the city airport greeted them as they exited, the cold wind biting at their cheeks. Alexander offered his arm, and Lesley took it, feeling a shiver that wasn't entirely from the temperature. Her family's house was beautifully decorated for Christmas. Wreaths on the doors, lights twinkling along the eaves. Inside, the smell of baked goods, roasting meats, and evergreen filled the air. Cousins laughed and shouted, running past the decorated tree. Her parents greeted them warmly, though her mother's eyes lingered on Alexander with curiosity. "You two look wonderful," her mother said, glancing between them. "And Alexander, Thank you for coming. It's my pleasure, he said smoothly. Lesley insisted. Lesley felt a small heat rise to her cheeks. She whispered, "You didn't have to." "Shoo," he said gently. "You said you wanted help. I'm helping." Dinner began, and Lesley marveled at how effortlessly Alexander navigated conversations. He complimented her mother's cooking, teased her father just enough to make him laugh, and even charmed her younger cousins with stories of fictional Christmas adventures. Lesley noticed how natural he seemed, how genuinely warm he was when no cameras or corporate settings were involved. During a lull, her mother leaned in. "Lesley, you've never introduced anyone like this before. Tell me, how did you meet Alexander?" Lesley froze. Alexander leaned in, his presence comforting, his eyes giving her the silent signal. "Stick to the story." "In a coffee shop," she said quickly. "He helped me out when I was, well, in a tough spot. We laughed about it. And, well, it just clicked." Her mother nodded slowly, satisfied but curious. "How long have you been seeing each other?" 3 months, Alexander replied smoothly as rehearsed. Her mother's eyes softened. 3 months. That's wonderful. The evening continued with laughter, presence, and small moments of quiet. Yet, amid the joy, Lesley felt the weight of what she hadn't said. Every time Alexander's hand brushed hers, every time he smiled at her with those soft eyes, her heart betrayed the pretense. Later, as everyone gathered near the fireplace with mugs of hot chocolate, Alexander leaned closer. "Lesley, can I ask you something?" Her pulse quickened. "Of course. Are you happy?" His voice was low, almost hesitant, betraying a vulnerability she hadn't expected. Lesley looked into his eyes, searching for any hint of the billionaire persona she had feared. There was none, only sincerity. Her lips parted, but words didn't come immediately. I am," she admitted finally. "But I'm scared. Scared that this is all pretend. That tomorrow, when this is over, you'll go back to your world, and I'll be left with nothing." He studied her quietly. "Lesley, I'm not pretending right now. This moment, it's real to me." Her chest tightened. "Alexander, I mean it," he said softly. "I didn't plan on pretending when I met you. I wanted this. You." Her heart pounded. She couldn't believe what she was hearing. A part of her wanted to laugh with relief, but another part feared disappointment. Suddenly, her father cleared his throat. "Well, I suppose it's time for one last Christmas toast." Alexander stood and offered a toast, raising his mug. "To family, to new traditions, and to the people who make our hearts feel at home, even in unexpected ways." Lesley's heart ached at the sincerity in his words. She looked at him, realizing that this Christmas, she hadn't just survived, she had started to open her heart. As the night drew to a close, Alexander and Lesley stepped outside into the snowy yard. The quiet of the snowfall surrounded them, the distant city lights glimmering. Alexander's voice broke the silence. "Lesley, I know this started as a favor, but I can't pretend anymore. I don't want to. I care about you, more than I ever thought I could." Her breath caught. "Alexander, care about you too. But what happens when the holidays are over?" He reached for her hand. "Then we figure it out. Together." Lesley felt a warmth spreading through her chest, a mixture of hope, joy, and fear. But this time she wasn't alone. The snow drifted down around them as they stood hand in hand, the city lights reflecting in their eyes. And for the first time in years, Lesley felt truly seen, not just by family, not just by strangers, but by someone who mattered. As they held hands in the snow, a distant text notification pinged on Lesley's phone. She looked down to see a message from work. "Lesley, your big case just got moved up to the holidays. We need you in court tomorrow morning." Her heart sank. The real world was about to collide with her Christmas fantasy. Would Alexander be able to help her navigate both her family and her career? And would their growing feelings survive the test? Will Lesley and Alexander survive the unexpected twists of Christmas? Comment Bilo? The first rays of dawn crept through the curtains of Lesley's apartment the next morning. The snow outside had turned into a soft, sparkling blanket, the streets quiet save for the occasional hum of traffic. Lesley lay in bed for a moment, her heart still racing from last night. The laughter, the warmth, Alexander's hand in hers, and the tender words that had made her chest ache in the best possible way. Then her phone buzzed. Work. The case she had been preparing for months had suddenly been moved up to Christmas morning. She groaned softly, the weight of responsibility pressing down again. Alexander stirred beside her, still half asleep, hair tousled and eyes soft. He opened one eye and smiled. Trouble? Lesley rubbed her temples. You could say that. My case, it's today. Christmas morning. I don't even know how I'm going to make it to court. He sat up, pulling her gently into a hug. Hey, we'll figure it out. Together. You're not doing this alone. She rested her head against his chest, feeling the calm radiate from him. Somehow, it made the impossible feel possible. Alexander, I can't believe I'm saying this, she murmured. But I think I actually want to spend Christmas with you. All of it. Not just last night. He laughed softly, pressing a kiss to the top of her head. That's the best news I've heard all season. But reality was calling. Lesley reluctantly pulled back. I have to go. Court. My family. I need to explain the rest too. Alexander nodded. Then let's make it quick. I'll drive. We'll grab some breakfast on the way. And maybe, just maybe, we can sneak in a little more Christmas magic before work drags us down. The drive to court was filled with quiet chatter, small jokes, and stolen glances. Alexander had insisted on driving, making sure Lesley was calm and focused. Despite the biting winter wind outside, the warmth inside the car was undeniable. You know, Alexander said, glancing at her, you're incredible. Watching you handle your responsibilities, your career, and even the holiday chaos. I don't know anyone as impressive as you. Lesley blushed, looking away. I'm not that impressive. I try to do my best. He reached over and squeezed her hand. That's exactly why you are. Court was a whirlwind, but somehow, Lesley managed to navigate it with grace. Alexander waited outside, pacing slightly, then offered her a comforting smile when she emerged. You did it, he said simply. Lesley laughed in relief. Barely. But yes, it's done. Christmas saved. Sort of. Sort of? He asked, arching a brow. I mean, my family still thinks you're my boyfriend, and I have no idea how I'm going to tell them the truth after all the pretending. Alexander's expression softened. Then let's not tell them the truth yet. Let's make this Christmas one to remember first. Then we deal with the rest together. Lesley's heart fluttered. She nodded, unable to argue with the logic, or with the way her heart wanted to cling to him. The Haddon family home was alive with holiday cheer when they arrived. The smell of cinnamon, pine, and roasting meat greeted them. Lesley's mother enveloped her in a hug. Finally, and Alexander, welcome. Alexander smiled warmly, placing a hand gently on Lesley's back. Thank you for having me. Dinner was filled with laughter, playful teasing, and small moments that made Lesley feel a peace she hadn't known she could have. Alexander stayed close, supporting her, making her feel confident, cherished, and alive. After dessert, the family moved to the living room opening gifts. Alexander leaned close to Lesley, whispering, Ready for the last surprise? She shook her head, heart racing. I don't know if I'm ready for anything else this Christmas. He smiled. Trust me. He led her to the small balcony. The city lights sparkled beneath them, snow falling gently. Alexander turned to her, taking both her hands in his. Lesley, this started as a favor, a pretend relationship, but somewhere along the way, it stopped being pretend for me. Care about you. I want you not just for Christmas, but for every day after. Will you be with me? Tears sprang to her eyes. Alexander, I want that too. He smiled, pulling her close. And there, under the soft snowfall, with the city lights dancing around them, they shared their first real kiss, gentle, warm, and full of promise. The rest of Christmas was a blur of laughter, warmth, and togetherness. Lesley's family adored Alexander not just for his charm and wealth, but for the way he truly cared for Lesley, and Alexander discovered a joy he had long forgotten. The simple, profound happiness of being with someone who understood him. By the evening, as snow blanketed the city and the fireplace crackled, Alexander held Lesley close. "Merry Christmas, Lesley," he murmured. "Merry Christmas, Alexander," she replied softly, resting her head against his chest. For once, there were no pretenses, no lies, just two hearts, finding each other in the most unexpected of ways. Cliffhanger/happy end of Act 9. The camera of the YouTube short might pan out as Alexander and Lesley sit on the balcony, snow falling gently around them. The narration could whisper, "Sometimes the best gifts come wrapped in surprises. And sometimes, love finds you when you least expect it." Their story was over for now, but their future had only just begun. CTA end of Act 9. Did Lesley and Alexander's Christmas miracle warm your heart? Comment below with your favorite moment, and don't forget to subscribe to Philia Heart for more billionaire romance stories. Thank you so much for watching my story all the way to the end. Your support means everything. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel and drop a comment below. I'd love to hear your thoughts. The first rays of dawn crept through the curtains of Lesley's apartment the next morning. The snow outside had turned into a soft, sparkling blanket, the streets quiet save for the occasional hum of traffic. Lesley lay in bed for a moment, her heart still racing from last night. The laughter, the warmth, Alexander's hand in hers, and the tender words that had made her chest ache in the best possible way. Then her phone buzzed. Work. The case she had been preparing for months had suddenly been moved up to Christmas morning. She groaned softly, the weight of responsibility pressing down again. Alexander stirred beside her, still half asleep, hair tousled and eyes soft. He opened one eye and smiled. "Trouble?" Lesley rubbed her temples. "You could say that. My case, it's today. Christmas morning. I don't even know how I'm going to make it to court." He sat up, pulling her gently into a hug. "Hey, we'll figure it out. Together. You're not doing this alone." She rested her head against his chest, feeling the calm radiate from him. Somehow, it made the impossible feel possible. "Alexander, I can't believe I'm saying this," she murmured. "But I think I actually want to spend Christmas with you. All of it. Not just last night." He laughed softly, pressing a kiss to the top of her head. "That's the best news I've heard all season." But reality was calling. Lesley reluctantly pulled back. "I have to go. Court. My family. I need to explain the rest too." Alexander nodded. "Then let's make it quick. I'll drive. We'll grab some breakfast on the way. And maybe, just maybe, we can sneak in a little more Christmas magic before work drags us down." The drive to court was filled with quiet chatter, small jokes, and stolen glances. Alexander had insisted on driving, making sure Lesley was calm and focused. Despite the biting winter wind outside, the warmth inside the car was undeniable. "You know," Alexander said, glancing at her, "you're incredible. Watching you handle your responsibilities, your career, and even the holiday chaos. I don't know anyone as impressive as you." Lesley blushed, looking away. "I'm not that impressive. I try to do my best." He reached over and squeezed her hand. "That's exactly why you are." Court was a whirlwind, but somehow, Lesley managed to navigate it with grace. Alexander waited outside, pacing slightly, then offered her a comforting smile when she emerged. "You did it," he said simply. Lesley laughed in relief. "Barely. But yes, it's done. Christmas saved. Sort of." "Sort of?" he asked, arching a brow. "I mean, my family still thinks you're my boyfriend, and I have no idea how I'm going to tell them the truth after all the pretending." Alexander's expression softened. "Then let's not tell them the truth yet. Let's make this Christmas one to remember first. Then we deal with the rest together." Lesley's heart fluttered. She nodded, unable to argue with the logic, or with the way her heart wanted to cling to him. The Haddon family home was alive with holiday cheer when they arrived. The smell of cinnamon, pine, and roasting meat greeted them. Lesley's mother enveloped her in a hug. Finally, and Alexander, welcome. Alexander smiled warmly, placing a hand gently on Lesley's back. Thank you for having me. Dinner was filled with laughter, playful teasing, and small moments that made Lesley feel a peace she hadn't known she could have. Alexander stayed close, supporting her, making her feel confident, cherished, and alive. After dessert, the family moved to the living room opening gifts. Alexander leaned close to Lesley, whispering, "Ready for the last surprise?" She shook her head, heart racing. "I don't know if I'm ready for anything else this Christmas." He smiled. "Trust me." He led her to the small balcony. The city lights sparkled beneath them, snow falling gently. Alexander turned to her, taking both her hands in his. "Lesley, this started as a favor, a pretend relationship, but somewhere along the way, it stopped being pretend for me. Care about you. I want you not just for Christmas, but for every day after. Will you be with me?" Tears sprang to her eyes. "Alexander, I want that too." He smiled, pulling her close. And there, under the soft snowfall, with the city lights dancing around them, they shared their first real kiss, gentle, warm, and full of promise. The rest of Christmas was a blur of laughter, warmth, and togetherness. Lesley's family adored Alexander not just for his charm and wealth, but for the way he truly cared for Lesley. And Alexander discovered a joy he had long forgotten. The simple, profound happiness of being with someone who understood him. By the evening, as snow blanketed the city and the fireplace crackled, Alexander held Lesley close. "Merry Christmas, Lesley," he murmured. "Merry Christmas, Alexander," she replied softly, resting her head against his chest. For once, there were no pretenses, no lies, just two hearts, finding each other in the most unexpected of ways. Alexander and Lesley sit on the balcony, snow falling gently around them. The narration could whisper, "Sometimes the best gifts come wrapped in surprises. And sometimes, love finds you when you least expect it." Did Lesley and Alexander's Christmas miracle warm your heart? Comment below with your favorite moment. Thank you so much for watching my story all the way to the end. Your support means everything. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel and drop a comment below. I'd love to hear your thoughts.